Hello, I am Verde Arbusto, and this is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube, and I also have a page on Facebook as well. Um, and this is part F, as the title page shows. I am gradually, ever so gently working my way through the article by Pierluigi Poggi, and I have over here on the left. This is the most current version of the Schumann resonance report that I could find. You see these little spikes here of amplitude have come in just very recently, and you see this field of magnetism that's kind of developing over here as well, behind it. All right. We just came from a period, a diurnal period, what I would call, of relatively little activity, which could be related to where the sun is in relative to the Earth. All right. Pardon me. Excuse me. All right. So, if you're new here, welcome. As I do these videos, I often do a bunch. The subject, I try and keep this simple, and so sometimes when keeping things simple, you wind up saying more because you have to explain things in order for other things to be understood. So keeping things simple may also mean longer videos, because I'm trying to define certain words, phrases, concepts, so that they're in common people language. And sometimes I'm not sure if I've made the point or not, and so I think sometimes I go over and repeat myself, and I'm hoping it's not being boring, but it's a different perspective on the same thing. And so with the subject matter here, we have spectrograms. So the same thing sort of applies here as well. I've talked about this, and I'm constantly reminded there's new people. So I want to keep things simple and bring up the basic stuff for the new people, and even for the older folks who've been around here for a while. I think some of this may even be new. As I come across new information and present it, I think it's also new to other people. If it's new to me, chances are it's going to be new to you guys as well. I think that's a pretty obvious thing. Especially if I'm the one that's supposed to be finding the information, or in fact I do find the information. All right, so basically here where I'm at, I'm going to pick up more or less right where I left off. The other video was 10 minutes. I hit the wrong button and stopped it shorter than I had wanted to. But I think it was actually a good point to stop, because where the last video inevitably left off is I think a good place to start this video, because it deals with the first part deals with, he talks about out of band information, essentially. If you recall that from the last video, if you've watched that in the last video, if you haven't watched the last video, please go back and watch part E to this. It's only 10 minutes. And so here is a little schematic of the amplification chain. I think that's a good way to put it, of processing the Schumann signal from their antenna. And you can see there's a T antenna. It will go more into this in the article itself. Okay, so I'm just giving a little diagram of why I made this. First off, because I wanted to look a little bit different from the other ones, but still the same, carry the same material as is in the article. All right, so I thought it was a little change might be due with this little schematic. That's where we're at. This is the start of part F. Okay. And behind it, if you've been following along, you recognize this is the decibel meter here, the intensity and field strength, relative field strength. And these are our hertzes. This is a frequency. There's 50. This is the notable notch here. And why I put this here is because it's a good reminder that the amplification chain also can create noise in there. It's something to consider. How are they extracting the signal? What are they using? All right. So I think that's a good point to. Excuse me. I think I am ready to go into the content here. I'm at a completely loss for words here. The article itself. All right. So let me pause this. Okay. This was the schematic. Here we go. Of the let me just scroll back up. The front end. Okay. This is where we are in this. I had just gotten done reading a bunch of this, and I was getting ready to go into the next topic, which would be the choice of the first integrated circuit. The last video I got to this point here. Okay, so this is the diagram. All right, so we're working through understanding the technical aspect, I don't know, the machinery. Oh, please. All right. So we're working to understand the mechanics, the I don't even know what the heck to call this. It's a schematic diagram. I know that's what it is. We're working to pardon me. We're working to understand the technical hardware. Just to figure out what it is we're doing. The technical hardware of the okay. I just don't like the door there being on the screen in case someone comes in. No one's coming in. I'm pretty sure I locked it, but just I don't even like the door showing. All right, so there we go. That's why I'm freaking out about this. I'm not freaking out. I'm fine. Okay. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate your love and support and the comments by everyone. All right. As we make it through this very difficult literature here. All right. So this basic schematic, and what he's doing here, he's pointing out R16, R1. So T1, T2. He's giving you these. There's LN. There's L1. I think that is V2. All right. So what he's doing is in here, and this is a good reminder here in this diagram that you I have this up to 170% magnification. More than that, it kind of does a weird thing. Hopefully you can see this. If not, go to the website yourself here, vlf.it. It's Italy, Pogi 1. All right. So you can find it yourself. All right. So I am just, and my purpose here is I'm leading you to this. I'm introducing this material so that you yourself know where to get it and how to get it. All right. So this is the schematic of the front end. Basically, you saw a picture up here of what it looks like on the breadboard. Okay, front end, this is the schematic. C is capacitor, R is resistor, T I think is terminator. I'm not sure. LN, where's the LN? Line. I'm not sure what the LN is. But anyway, so he explains it in here. All right. So, all right. So all right. So I'll just go through this once again. I guess couldn't hurt. Where are we? R1. defines the input, R is resistor, the input impedance. Impedance is it's measured in ohms, and the R, the resistor, creates impedance. Okay, where were we? R1 defines the input impedance of the circuit and the cutoff frequency of the system, antenna and front end. It also has the task of grounding the bias current of the operational amplifier. LN1 is a small neon bulb without series resistance, which clamps the input voltage when it rises above 60 to approximately 100 volts, limiting, in the case of storm, the input voltage to the circuit to a safe level, thus improving its reliability as much as possible. Choose a low voltage bulb. Okay. T1 and T2 are general purpose transistor used as clamp diodes with very low leakage current. R2 limits the current in the diodes T1 and T2 in the case of high voltages at the entrance. Okay. L1, R2, C1 realize a low pass filter at about 20 hertz, 20 kHz, 20 kilohertz, to avoid overload from out of band signals. All right. So this was something I wanted to talk about really briefly. I got into it and I wasn't even recording on the other time. Okay, so this was something that I had wanted to wanted to point out. We've talked about this in the past, and that the subject that this right here falls under the overload from out of band signals. This is one of the primary causes of the data blackouts at the data voids at Tomsk. I don't have enough information from other antenna manufacturers to be able to show a data void from another place than our friends in Russia. Okay, so in my experience, me trying to hunt up the example of out of band signal would be difficult outside of me showing you the example from Tomsk. All right. Now, I don't feel like going into my records to show a data blackout, a data void. I'm gonna, not here. I want to finish reading this, but I'm bookmarking this for later. All right, and so hopefully people will remember in the comments. We can talk about this. I think I'm going to find a way to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of single out this expression here and introduce it into the discussion, the reasonable person's discussion of what the data blackouts are. And in fact, I think the next time I would imagine that we'll be getting a data gap somewhere soon, as is the pattern for Tomsk. So when we get another data gap soon, I think I will be kind of pulling this out and bringing up that phrase so we all can kind of reminisce over it and ruminate upon what it's telling us. All right, so more to follow. All right, so let me get back. Okay, onward and upward. R15 and R16 determine the gain of the first stage. Depending on the situations, it may be convenient to modify it using the R16 that can then be replaced, for example, by a potentiometer of 10 kiloohms, and K is again 1,000. So we're talking about 10,000 ohms. Okay. Ready? The choice of the first integrated circuit. As often happens, the first stage of a receiver is what determines most part of the final result. The choice of the active device is therefore important and must be performed, in this case, following two guidelines. Okay, the first is the effect of the bias current of the inputs, and then the next is the effect of noise generators. Okay. To study the effects of the bias currents of the inputs, we can use the scheme shown here. All right. And I'm kind of just holding here so I can kind of look this over. Figure 5. Equivalent schematic for the effect of bias current. All right. Considering the values of the resistance of the circuit, it appears that the key role is the difference of potential generated across of R3. Thus, it's important to choose a device with low bias current. For the study of the noise, we can use the diagram below. Okay. Schematic equivalent for study on noise. All right. You see a little difference of where they put the ground. Right? Grounding is very important. All right. Because if you have things that are leaking, you don't want them to leach out into the system. Okay. You will, especially if you're dealing with subtle. Okay, hold on. All right. So, especially if you're dealing with subtle energies, there we go. Okay. So, especially if you're dealing with subtle energies and you have very small components and et cetera, they have to be grounded well. Everything has to be soldered, connected. You don't want any loose connections moving in the breeze in there, because it will create an electrical arc. It'll arc if it's not firmly connected, and there's a little bit of space in there. That signal will jump, and it's basically an accumulation of charge that bang bumps over. Okay, so that's one of the things that you want to avoid. First off, the things that the components in there aren't moving around, flopping around, that they're not being jostled by the wind, by the elements, earthquakes, what have you. And so everything has to be isolated, everything has to be grounded off, you see. So all of these different symbols, that's what these are. These are ground. That's what they're showing you there, grounding. And so there's a positive, there's a negative, and then there's the neutral, or the ground. Neutral is not ground. There's a great video that one of my favorite channels put out, of the difference of what the neutral and the ground are. Okay, so the neutral is not the ground, okay? But in many cases, the neutral does get grounded, so it's isolated, okay? And there's a video that explains this much better. But where it's relevant to the Schumann harmonics, the resonances, this is even kind of a side. I'll accept that where I'm kind of going here as a side track of this topic here, and it kind of goes to the discussion I was having before this one of the spectrograms in general, where I was talking about a pole reversal and what that means for the Schumann resonances. I'm still answering that question, so this is sort of I put it off in the back burner, but it's still simmering around. So the effect of the pole reversal on the Schumann resonances and the equipment that is used to measure it, it's really important, because quite honestly, you don't know one from the other without it being measured. You know, the what I mean by that is the Schumann resonances themselves or what's being recorded. And part of it is, a lot of this is the glue of why they're inseparable, is because of the perception in the people's minds of the needing that physical verification of it to show that the Schumann resonances are indeed doing something. And here's the proof. Here's your proof. So without the machinery, with the machinery malfunctioning, you have no proof. You don't have proof. There is no objective proof. If you can't, this is a disclaimer, if you cannot trust your own self, if you cannot trust your own intuition of what your body is telling you is happening, and you need that physical verification of the truth, then without, with the data voids, with the machines going down, you're stuck. You're done. You can't prove anything. I can, right? I can. I'm able to. I know what the F-bomb is going on. You can't. And I don't mean this for everyone. There's like 6 of you that I'm not including here in this, but the rest of you, if you're not in the little 6 that I'm talking about, and you know who you are, then yeah, you need the machinery. So the problem with so you see here, everything gets grounded out. Okay, so the problem with the flipping poles is that the potential of the ground is going from being a negative to a positive, and vice versa. You have the poles, the polarity. So you have north and south, that's the magnetic poles, but then you have the electric poles, okay, which are in a different place, causing the dynamo of the Earth, the electrical charge. There's the electrical charge of the Earth, the grounding potential capacity of the Earth itself, and then there is whatever charges the amplitude, charges the electric, charges the upright, the bang, the this is charge, this is current, okay? So you have charge, and then you have current. Okay, so one's voltage, one's amplitude. Okay, so it's important to know in these things the difference, the differential of even 0.5 volts, of half a volt. Okay, when these electronics are working on 0.5 and less, 0.3, 0.03 volts, we're talking about, we're now getting into, small voltages of a 0.03, hundredths of a volt that these things are operating on. They don't need much of themselves of a charge. And so when you're looking at the difference, the fluctuation in your ground, your completing the circuit so it doesn't mess up your internals, right? If you can picture this, if you followed along with what I'm saying, that as the poles shift and they drift, and the differential of what used to be a perfect ground, a perfect zero, you zeroed everything out, it moves 0.03 in a day can do that, your electronics get affected by that shift in the ground. And so, how do I explain this? That's why certain points of the day, at certain times, the electronics can drain faster than others. The Schumann resonances, they are the waves that float in the atmosphere. So the ground itself has a certain charge or a lack of charge. The air, the atmosphere, has a different, you have the ground, the earth, the ground, it level, you put it into the ground, bang, it zeroes out the energy. If it's up here, if it's up here, this is the ground, there we go. That's the ground, that's the earth, that's a planet. Everything below that is a negative charge, okay, for the sake of illustration. Negative, it's a minus, okay. So you're tapping into that to ground out whatever electronics you have. Okay, tapping into it, the grounding rod tapped into it, it circles it around, and then it goes back into the earth. All right, so what happens is the potential moves, it shifts. So it's now no longer the same charge that it was when you set it up. You kind of balance it all out, so everything's all equal, with the assumption that the earth, the ground, would stay the same charge. Okay? However, as the magnetic poles drift, the charge potential of the ground is changing, it's shifting. So it's now not at a perfect zero, it's moved by 0.03, 0.04, 0.05, whatever, small, relatively small, but as the magnetic field itself dwindles, the poles migrate, they're getting ready to flip, this is what happens, the pole strength goes down, and then it kicks back up, and then it flips, then the poles flip, bang. So in the process of doing this, the magnetic field goes down, the magnetic strength goes down, takes more voltage to get the stuff to work, your stuff over here, where I'm talking about here, get this stuff to work, and then the electric potential of the ground changes. And what's depending on that difference of voltage to complete the circuit is now no longer present, but the voltages are still sticking in the circuit. It doesn't ground it. So the circuit is still active, even though the ground was there, the potential to ground was there, and you want it to ground, it's trying to go to ground, but the ground has moved up. It's moved up in voltage, it's moved up in potential. It's now no longer perfect zero. So what happens is that the 0.03 is small, relatively small, or even less, will F up the electronics, like in your phone, your tablet. If you didn't have the power adapter that adjusted all for that, and you didn't have a power grid that took on a lot of that, it would fry your electronics. That's why grounding all this shit is really important. And that's why as poles shift, grounding things right into the earth become extremely important and have a way to kind of dissipate all that built up charge that hasn't released as current. It's charge held within your device. It's charge held within your device, and with enough of it, a static charge of plugging your phone, just plugging your phone into the jack, or plugging your headphone into it. It's like a static charge. Like when you rub your feet on the carpet, and then you touch something metal, you get a charge. That's what that accumulated charge in your phone, your electronics, would be like if it's not grounded. Okay? And yet, again, going back to the polar shift, the grounding itself is changing. It's getting a potential difference that's not being able to be accounted for, or I don't even know what the word is, but adjusted for in many cases, and that's where the power, a lot of power transformers blow, and you get the blue, like crazy blue glow around these transformers, and that's kind of one of the main reasons why, is because the ground potential of the ground itself is moving, it's shifting, it's increasing frequency in addition to getting ready to flip in and of itself. And so the old grid, the parts of the old grid that aren't ready to what is this, that they're not ready to receive it and acclimate into it, and the new energies coming in, whatever you got, they're not able to integrate into it, and so they overload, excuse me. And one can expect to see more of that type of stuff as we're getting ready for getting ready for flight, I'll just say, and I don't know a better way to put it. All right. Okay, so figure 6. All right, so I went over why the ground is important. It's good to know what some of this stuff is. Just little symbols here. The contributions to the total noise are due to thermal resistance, noise voltage of the operational, conversion by the resistances and voltage noise of the noise current, TOF, typo I would say, current of the amplifier outputs. All right. With a little of calculations, we can put in evidence, as with the values of resistance employed in the circuit, it is the predominant, the contribution of the operational input noise current, to the total noise. This is translated from Italian, and some of the word phrasage, the verbiage, I guess, is getting me a little messed up. So I'm trying to understand it as I'm reading it, and so then I have to remember. Oh yeah, it's translated. Current to the total noise. By comparison of the performance of some of the devices mostly available, we obtain the following summary table calculated at 10 hertz, 17 degrees centigrade, and with the values of R1, 2, 3 of the circuit tested, circuit before described. Sorry, what did you say tested? Circuit before described. Right. So here's a chart, comparative table between op-amp. I honestly have not a good idea what this is showing. I would love to explain some of this, but I really have no idea. So pardon me on that. And I admit, when there's stuff that pops up, like this, that is outside of my area of expertise. Like a lot of the stuff, when they're doing the technical stuff and the schematics, I have a basic training in electronics. I went to tech school. I took the electronics. I have experience with this. However, there's a level that is beyond me, and so I will just, as a disclaimer, gotta say that there is a bunch of this that is just kind of outside of my normal experience. All right, so we're both learning together. The first 6 devices are substantially equivalent and considered cost Oh, and considering cost and availability, perhaps it may be worth experiencing only the alternative between the TL071 and the AD820, the OP07 and OP27, and following ones, although excellent in general sense, for this specific application are not advised because of their high current noise at those frequencies. Okay, the breakdown of the various contributions to the total noise in the circuit is summarized by the graphics below. Pay attention as the scale is a logarithmic type. Okay, and that would be on this end. All right. Now, one of the things he's saying is that with this is measuring these volts, and this is R with the, like this. What he's showing you is the noise characteristics of the components being used, and this is extremely important when we're talking about the Schumann resonances, because when we're looking at this, okay, we are also looking at these little tiny marks in the vertical that we wonder what they are. Where are they coming from? Do we believe that this is a pulse coming from Earth? Well, the pulse does have, the Earth does have a pulse every 26 seconds. Yet this is something that I don't think that this is showing every 26 seconds. Okay, and this is something that fairly recently has come up on the charts. It wasn't there, months and months ago. It's just something that fairly recently came up. All right. So this is part of one of the discussions of this, is that we can sort of backward engineer, if you will, what is causing those data stripes on the spectrogram and Tomsk. Okay, so this is part of what we're doing, is just understanding the process going in to filtering the different types of noise from the components themselves. I think that's the best way to put it. And here's a graphical comparison. He was talking about it's a logarithmic scale. All right, it shows you the different kind of things over here. That that's V2 and O. That says V2 and R3. All right. So this is, we're so close to the end of this. However, I am going to end this at the notch. Okay. And close out this video because it's now getting on close to like 40 minutes. Yes, I'm at 38 minutes, and that is a good place to stop for now. Let's not talking in one shot for right now. All right, so this is a good place to end it. Let me make myself present. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for being here. This is Verdi Arbusta, the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube, and I get a little 700 followers on Facebook, which is nice. Thank everyone for being there. Those are some people. In fact, those are friends that I know from real life. That people that I know from real life that are over there. I'm not sure who's in my YouTube sub list at this point. Anyway. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate your love and support. Please leave comments. I want to hear from people. I want to know if you're getting this, things that I can go over, should go over, go into more detail. This is your channel as well. Because I know what I need to know. How do I say this without sounding like an arrogant turd? I know what I need to know. Like, I don't need to do this to figure this out. I talk to my guides. They tell me. And so the flip side of that is, you don't, just because you arrogant bastard, doesn't mean you get to keep the knowledge to yourself. That's part of the thing of maturity and growth in the evolution and spiritual ascension and the attainment path and all of that, attainment of spiritual evolution, that once you know, you now have no choice. Once you get the answer and it's been given to you, you have no choice but to present it to people. Do with it as you will. I don't care. I'm not getting, I don't have a place in heaven, in Schumann heaven, if you get this or not. If it rings with you, true, it does or it doesn't. That's not that's not for me. I'm not trying to sell this to you. I have nothing to sell. I mean, please give them my Patreon page, okay. But, the YouTube videos are free. And I'm not at this point planning on monetizing it because the information needs to get out there to people. And it's important for me to tell what I have learned and what I know because it was provided freely for me. Yet what you do with it is completely up to you. And I hope that you are getting something from this. I know there's a group of people who tell me, yeah, I get something, and so I do it for kind of a small group of people who I know, I'm kind of gearing it toward them, the people that I know are getting something. But if you're new here, this is your first time, or if you haven't managed to stick around to any of the other endings of the videos I've done, and this is the first ending, congratulations, you made it through. You should get an award or a medal or something. But in lieu of that, you get my gratitude for having come here and learning about this. There really is a learning curve. It's a steep learning curve to knowing about the Schumann resonances because there's a lot to it. And as you can see from the series here, one article I've taken, broken up into a bunch of different pieces so that we can have a thorough discussion on the makings of the detector and the antenna system for the Schumann resonances and how it relates to that, the electronics, how it relates to the Schumann spectrogram and what you're getting. I've shown other spectrograms, and here in this particular article, there's a couple of spectrograms that are given, and an earlier part of this particular series here, I've put them together, put the spectrograms together, that so you could see them all working, how the difference of them is, and you can kind of get a sense of what things are where. It's really important to get information from more than Tomsk, more than Russia, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but sometimes they go down, and if you're curious and interested about this, you should know, because there are other antenna makers, and you should know what you're looking at when you're looking at them. So that is the main focus of doing the bit about the spectrogram and the articles from the antenna makers themselves. So I have a really good idea. Okay, it's me jabbering on long enough. All right. We're now an hour and a half into it. I said at 40 minutes. It's close enough. All right. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. Please like, subscribe. I appreciate your time, your love, your support. Thank you all for being here. You all are wonderful.